Hello and welcome to this video on the Bhopal disaster. On the night of December 2-3, 1984, a catastrophic gas leak occurred at the Union Carbide India Limited pesticide plant in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, India, releasing approximately 42 tons of toxic methyl isocyanate and other hazardous gases into the atmosphere. The Bhopal disaster, also known as the Bhopal gas tragedy, took place on the night of December 2-3, 1984, at the Union Carbide India Limited (UCIL) pesticide plant in Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh, India. A catastrophic gas leak occurred, releasing approximately 42 tons of toxic methyl isocyanate (IC) and other hazardous gases into the atmosphere. These lethal gases quickly spread across the densely populated city, causing the immediate deaths of thousands of people. In the aftermath of the disaster, the death toll rose to an estimated 15,000 to 20,000, while around 500,000 survivors experienced both acute and long-term health issues, including respiratory problems, eye irritation, and neurological disorders. The surrounding environment also suffered significant damage, with soil and water sources becoming contaminated, leading to further health risks for the local population. The Bhopal disaster remains one of the most devastating industrial accidents in history. The Bhopal disaster holds a prominent place in industrial disaster history due to its unprecedented scale of human suffering and environmental damage. As one of the most severe industrial accidents ever recorded, it brought global attention to the risks associated with hazardous industries and the potential consequences of poor safety standards and weak regulatory oversight. The tragedy served as a catalyst for change in several areas. It led to the establishment and reinforcement of safety regulations, corporate accountability, and environmental policies worldwide. The disaster prompted governments and industries to reevaluate their approach to managing hazardous materials, implementing stricter safety protocols, and ensuring proper training for employees. Moreover, the Bhopal disaster gave rise to the environmental justice movement, highlighting the need to address inequalities in the distribution of environmental risks, particularly in vulnerable communities. It has become a powerful symbol of the importance of corporate responsibility and the need for government diligence in safeguarding communities and the environment from the potential hazards of industrial activities. The lessons learned from Bhopal continue to inform and shape industrial safety standards and environmental policies to this day. Bhopal in the 1980s was a rapidly growing city in the central Indian state of Madhya Pradesh. Its population comprised a mix of industrial workers, government employees, and local businesses. As the capital city of the state, Bhopal became an attractive destination for various industries, including chemical and heavy engineering, which contributed to its economic development. The Union Carbide Corporation, an American multinational company, established its pesticide plant in Bhopal to produce carbaryl, a pesticide sold under the brand name 7. The plant was built in the early 1970s as a response to India's increasing demand for pesticides to support its agricultural sector and the Green Revolution. The plant was operated by Union Carbide India Limited (UCIL), a subsidiary of the Union Carbide Corporation, with the Indian government owning a minority stake. The location of the plant within a densely populated area was a critical factor in the scale of the disaster that followed. The pesticide plant became an essential source of employment for the local population, but it also introduced potential hazards associated with the chemicals used and produced on site. The events that unfolded at the Union Carbide pesticide plant in 1984 would have lasting consequences for the people of Bhopal and the world's approach to industrial safety and corporate responsibility. In the weeks and months leading up to the disaster, there were several warning signs that the Union Carbide pesticide plant was facing critical safety issues. Inadequate maintenance, design flaws, and cost-cutting measures had compromised the plant's safety systems. The lack of proper employee training and insufficient safety protocols further contributed to the eventual catastrophe. On the night of December 2-3, 1984, a series of events unfolded that ultimately led to the massive gas leak. A large amount of water entered the mic storage tank, triggering an exothermic reaction that produced a dangerous increase in temperature and pressure. The plant's safety systems, including the vent gas scrubber and flare tower, which were designed to neutralize and burn off escaping gases, were either inoperative or insufficient to handle the volume of gas released. Gas leak and aftermath. Approximately 42 tons of toxic methyl isocyanate (IC) and other hazardous gases escaped from the storage tank and spread across the city of Bhopal, forming a deadly cloud that engulfed the surrounding areas. Thousands of people were killed instantly, while many others suffered severe respiratory and neurological problems, eye irritation, and other health issues. In the days, weeks, and months following the disaster, the death toll continued to rise, eventually reaching an estimated 15,000 to 20,000 fatalities. The survivors faced ongoing health challenges, with around 500,000 people experiencing acute and long-term health effects. The environmental impact was also immense, as the toxic chemicals contaminated soil and water sources, leading to further health risks and affecting agriculture and livestock in the region. The Bhopal disaster exposed the dangers of inadequate safety measures and weak regulatory oversight in hazardous industries. It served as a wake-up call for governments and corporations worldwide to prioritize industrial safety, environmental protection, and corporate responsibility to prevent similar tragedies in the future. The Bhopal disaster left an indelible mark on the lives of the survivors and their families. Personal accounts from that fateful night describe the chaos and confusion as people tried to flee the toxic cloud that enveloped the city. Many survivors recall the burning sensation in their eyes, throat, and lungs, the intense coughing, and the overpowering smell that made it difficult to breathe. Families were separated in the pandemonium, with parents desperately searching for their children and relatives amidst the darkness and toxic fumes. Countless stories of heroism and resilience emerged as people helped each other escape and shared their limited resources in the immediate aftermath of the disaster. The long-term consequences of the Bhopal gas tragedy have been immense for the affected community. With thousands of lives lost, families were left to grieve and cope with the emotional and financial burden of the tragedy. Many survivors continue to suffer from chronic health issues, including respiratory problems, vision impairment, and neurological disorders, which have limited their ability to work and maintain a normal life. The contamination of soil and water sources has had a lasting impact on the local environment, agriculture, and the livelihoods of the people in the region. The need for ongoing medical care, compensation, and rehabilitation has placed a strain on the community and its resources. Activism and advocacy efforts have been vital in seeking justice and ensuring that the lessons from the Bhopal disaster are not forgotten. The tragedy remains a poignant reminder of the importance of prioritizing safety, corporate responsibility, and the well-being of communities in the face of industrial development. The Bhopal disaster was a tragic example of the consequences of inadequate safety standards and weak regulatory oversight in the industrial sector. The Union Carbide pesticide plant in Bhopal had several known safety issues, including poor maintenance practices, design flaws, and insufficient safety protocols. Moreover, the Indian government's oversight of the plant was criticized for being inadequate and failing to ensure the safety of the local population. The disaster prompted a global conversation about industrial safety standards and the need for stronger regulatory oversight. The International Labor Organization (ILO) and the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) developed safety guidelines for hazardous industries, while various countries introduced new regulations and safety protocols. The Bhopal disaster also led to the creation of international treaties such as the Rotterdam Convention and the Stockholm Convention, aimed at controlling the production, use, and disposal of hazardous chemicals. The legal aftermath of the Bhopal disaster was a long and contentious process, with survivors and their families seeking justice and compensation for the damages they suffered. Union Carbide Corporation, the parent company of UCIL, initially settled with the Indian government for $470 million in 1989. However, this amount was widely criticized as being insufficient to cover the full extent of the damages and compensation owed to the affected community. In subsequent years, survivors and activists continued to fight for justice and compensation through legal proceedings and advocacy efforts. In 2001, Union Carbide Corporation was acquired by Dow Chemicals, which inherited the legal responsibilities related to the Bhopal disaster. However, Dow Chemicals denied any responsibility and has faced ongoing criticism from survivors and activists. The Bhopal disaster remains a reminder of the importance of corporate accountability and the need for government diligence in protecting the health and safety of communities affected by industrial activities. The tragedy continues to inspire activism and advocacy efforts around the world, seeking to prevent similar tragedies in the future and ensure justice for the survivors and their families. Following the Bhopal disaster, industries around the world began to prioritize safety and environmental protection in their operations. Companies introduced new safety protocols, invested in better technology, and established more stringent training programs to ensure the well-being of their employees and the communities in which they operate. In conclusion, the Bhopal disaster serves as a powerful reminder of the need for industrial safety, environmental protection, and corporate responsibility. It remains a critical event in the history of industrial disasters and continues to inspire advocacy and activism efforts around the world. The lessons learned from Bhopal must be heeded to prevent similar tragedies in the future and ensure a safer and more equitable world for all.